Hi, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
No worries.
Uh, so who do we have here? Let's call a roll call.
All right, we have Kevin Nutt, Nutt, and we have Casey Park, Park, at 177 Indian Field Road, Groton, Connecticut, 06340.
Okay. So can you tell us what's been happening?
Do you want? All right. So I don't want to take any, time away from you guys because I know you have lives too. We moved in on April 2nd, and 5 days later, we started having issues with our plumbing, and we had a few inches of standing water in the bathroom and in the, well, yeah, it was actually sewage, in the hallway as well. To try to make a long story short, Brian was pretty helpful with, doing all this to help us out with getting that squared away. We can you help me out with this? There's a lot, so it's hard to condense it into just like a 5-minute conversation, if you will. So bear with us because there's been a lot. And
so can I just stop you for a minute and
yes,
ask you? I took this complaint. When I received your complaint, and this is for the rest of the committee members and everyone else. A complaint of standing sewer in a dwelling is a life safety issue. There are children in the dwelling, and they are exposed to that sewer. I notified Ledge Light. They sent an inspector out, and they have also raised concern about this. And before we even begin to address any of the issues, building inspection from the town of Groton must go there and properly inspect that building. Before we can determine any value of rent or any kind of thing, we need to know that that building is safe for everybody to live in. There are city sewers in that neighborhood. I don't know why it's hooked up. It's not the issue. We had sewer that came into the dwelling, may still be there. I have the notes from the Ledge Light inspection. She indicates she would like, she being the inspector, her name is, oh, let's find it right off that. Kara, thank you, Kara.
yes, sir. No worries, sir.
And she indicates she'd like to have building inspection go into that as well. There's no way for any one of us to determine the difference between standing water, spilled coffee, or raw sewer. And that really right now is my position until that is taken care of. They've gone on to indicate that there's asbestos underneath the carpet, which is going to take for an abatement 2 months. Okay, so these are things that we need to consider before we even move on any kind of a judgment. And that's really where we're going, where I'm going with this. I don't know what the rest of the commission is, where we are with this. But more inspections are needed.
Okay. So bottom line from what you're saying is that obviously, yeah, we still need, a building inspection. We need the abatement. But what we're having issues with, no offense, Brian, I know you're in a tough spot yourself. There's more to the story. And I don't know if you guys are actually the ones I should be telling this to, or if I should just get a lawyer involved. Because it's about, Brian coming out of his own pocket to pay for the expenses. We can't get a hold of the actual owners of the house. Brian is the owner of Key Property Management Company. And, we're stuck out in limbo. Our oldest daughter can't even utilize her room because the carpet's ripped up. We have tack strips being exposed.
Yeah.
We just had another problem with the plumbing the other day. We still have a hole in the wall that's not been fixed. We still have a strip of, and I have proof of all this in pictures that I can email every single one of you. We still have flooring ripped up in the hallway that is a tripping hazard that I had to personally take down myself that the contractor didn't even do. And then we called Brian the other day with another plumbing issue, because I guarantee you it's still it's the same issue. And he says we have to pay for it, but it will come out of our rent, which is understandable, but that's not, we're renting. But why can't we get in touch with the owners and talk to them personally?
At this particular point, because we have actual sewage in the dwelling, it needs to be inspected by somebody that will determine its safety for you and your family.
Agreed. And sorry to
And
interrupt you, sir.
there's no other issue involved until we determine that.
Okay. And does that take more time? Like this happened in April 7th. Does it take that long to get the building inspector to come out here and inspect this house to make sure that it's in a livable environment for our children? We're in July, sir.
I understand that. I just got this complaint and I'm moving it as fast as I can. We've got a lot of things going on as far as the way these complaints are handled.
Yes, sir.
I cannot answer for the other people involved. All I can tell you is that as I see it, and as Ledge Light saw it, that they cannot determine the safety of the dwelling without more inspections.
Okay.
Inspection needs to come from the building official, the building inspection. It needs to come from there.
Listen, this is Brian from Simple Key Property Management. Can I please jump in here?
Go ahead, Brian.
So I think the underlying assumption that everyone is making is that nothing is being done about the condition of the property.
That's not what I'm hearing either.
The reason why I'm saying that is we're moving forward with repairs and restoration of the property. We've been in touch with a restoration contractor who's been in touch with the insurance company.
Right.
Everything is going to be remediated and restored. So I would say I wouldn't want to wait for a building inspector to come and tell us the obvious, which is, of course, there's sewage. It's on a slab with a floating floor, and we had sewage back up out of the toilet. Why do we need an inspection from the building?
Brian, can I interrupt you, sir? You saw this house, you smelt it, and you said you didn't even want your own kids in this house. Give me a break.
Kevin, I don't
And
think
Brian, not to interrupt you again, but ever since we filed this complaint, you stopped all project on this house and just
I did
left
not.
it.
Yes, you did, sir.
I didn't.
Okay. Let's everybody hold on now.
So
Yes, sir.
I'm hoping the rest of the committee members understood where I was coming from with that.
I have a question. Can I ask a question?
Go ahead,
Sure.
Gwen.
My question is more for the attorney, I think, but I was under the impression that if the building is not livable, then the tenants are not responsible to pay rent. And to me, as obviously stated, that it's not really livable if you don't have a functioning bathroom. And so my other question is, I don't know, we haven't heard, there's a lot of details involved, but is the property manager not empowered to file an insurance claim? Because that would seem to be the venue to get it done quicker.
Gwen,
But
listen, I got to explain. I got to catch everybody up to speed here.
I would appreciate if everyone would stop interrupting each other, because I was talking, and if you would let me finish talking and then have the attorney answer the question that I had for the attorney, we could probably be a little more productive if people didn't interrupt each other.
Good point, Gwen.
So can you answer that, Attorney Callahan? I was under the impression that if the unit is not livable, that the tenant doesn't have to pay rent. And I know I have an insurance policy on mine that if that happens, my insurance policy will pay for a hotel or another place for my tenant to stay.
I can speak to the second part of your question of whether there's insurance coverage here or what it covers. I would hope that there is. as to the first part of the question, that would, I don't represent the landlord or the tenant, but that would be my take on it, is that from the sounds of it, this property is not in a livable condition. This commission's charge is whether the rent being charged is excessive, but you know, you have certain powers to require the property to be repaired and to lower the rent to a level that you think is appropriate until the repairs are performed. Yes, if it was me, I would not be paying rent based on the conditions described.
So if the rent is going to be reduced because the property is not livable, how are they living there? Why are they living there? To answer your question, the insurance coverage, to the best of my knowledge, the homeowner's insurance coverage does not cover a hotel for the tenant, unfortunately. And again, unfortunately, the tenant does not have renter's insurance.
We do have renter's insurance, Brian.
Well, but Casey, you got it after the fact. You got it after the date of loss. As we know, come on, as we know, if you had renter's insurance during the date of loss, this wouldn't even be an issue. You guys would be staying in a hotel right now.
But not to interrupt you, and I know I apologize for interrupting, but Brian, you did say that we would be put in a hotel at the owner's expense.
No, I did not. I said that
Yes, you did, sir.
While the bathroom was being professionally cleaned and while you didn't have hot water, I put you up in a hotel those nights. I did not say that you were going to be put up in a hotel for the 3 months while this restoration project is happening. I did not say that.
Yes, you did, sir. You said it verbally.
Okay, I have a question, Brian.
I did not. I'm not authorized to do
Brian? Hi, Brian. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Brian, how long was the house vacant before you rented it?
I'm not sure. I think 2 to 3 months.
Okay. And did you have, how many people did you have that looked at it?
Between 20 and 30.
Okay. How did you qualify them? How did you qualify these groups of tenants, these people?
Well, we do a credit, background, and an eviction check.
Okay. Okay. What is the percentage to income that you qualify people for?
Typically a little less than 3 times the gross rent. And they had over $5,000 in gross rent, gross monthly income, if memory serves.
I'm looking at a form right here that says 3,400 per month between the two tenants. Is that factual, Casey and Kevin, that you guys collectively make $3,400 a month?
Would you add it up? Yes, I would say yes.
Okay. And 30% of 3,400 is what? I guess where I'm going is I think you're a little high on your rent to begin with when you showed it to the folks.
Well, they wanted the place, they knew what the rent costs, and they were willing to move in. I mean, is that what the issue is? They can't afford it? Or is
It's
the
not
issue
that we
it's
can't,
unlivable?
You should have, excuse me, I'm talking. There are ways to qualify people that we don't run into this situation if the cost is the issue. Typically, professional property managers charge 30%. Okay, they qualify people at 30% of what their income is. That means 30%, $30 of every $100 they earn is their housing expense. And you're above that. 30% of $3,400 is $1,200.
I was under the impression that they made over $5,000 a month. If I'm wrong about, I'll have to go back and look at my records, but I used 3 times the rent and gross monthly income to qualify people. Other than that, I give people the benefit of the doubt. If somebody says they can afford the place and they have good credit, and they've never been evicted and they have a clean criminal history, I let them move in.
Right on. Okay. Okay.
May I say something, please?
Go ahead.
When we first initially signed the lease for this house, we were unaware of underlying issues. We were unaware that there was a main drain pipe leak. We were unaware that there was going to be sewage covering the floor for whatever reason, because the
And
septic
again-
was full.
Okay, and again, it goes back to the need for building inspection to tell
Correct.
us that this isn't gonna happen again. We have 5 occupants in a 1,000 square foot building, according to the town records, with 1 bathroom. They're on a septic tank where sewers are in the street. How come, Kevin, no, Brian, excuse me, Brian, you're not hooked up to city water and city sewer?
I was told that it was, and I was as shocked as everybody else is when I learned. It's not like this place is on a slab, so it's not like I can just go into the basement and see which way the drain pipe is pointed.
Everybody in the neighborhood has done that.
I was unaware. The owners indicated to me that it was on city sewer. And there may have been a
Okay.
misunderstanding about that, but I was completely unaware of that.
Okay, it's unacceptable that the sewer is backed up. I think everybody agrees with that. What's your plan are you guys gonna hook up to sewer to prevent this from happening?
I don't know about hooking up to sewer. I'd love to recommend to the owner that he hook up to sewer. As far as what we have going on right now is, as everyone is saying, we have definite sewage issue. I don't think we need anyone else to determine whether or not there's sewage. There's sewage present. Sewage backed up out of the toilet and went under a floating floor onto a slab. It's not like it could drain down into a basement where it could be mopped up. There is 100% sewage there. And I
Okay.
completely empathize with the tenants for that. We've been in touch with a restoration contractor. I don't know what Kevin said. We did not stop work on this project, I assure you. He discovered asbestos tiles underneath the floor that have to be abated. They have to be removed. That's full steam ahead. We're waiting on the
That was
abatement
a month
contract.
ago. That was a month ago.
It was over a month ago.
Full steam ahead? No, actually, sorry, gentlemen, sorry, ma'am. We were told by the team that was coming here to test the asbestos, which still has, we still have holes in our floor. All right, I'll lower my voice. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little worked up. We still have holes in our floor. We were told that the testing was going to be completed in roughly 48 to 72 hours. That was over a month ago. End statement.
Okay. Kevin,
I have a
think there's
question. I have a question.
Can I jump in?
Brian, have you spoken to the owners at all about the property work that needs to be done?
Yeah,
And are
so-
you in constant communication with them about the work that's going on?
So the issue with the owners and my lack of communication with them is the primary owner is in the Navy and he's underway until August. I've been in touch with his wife who English is not her first language and there's some communication issues there. I have it on good faith that the owner, when he comes back, will be able to advise me accordingly and will be as supportive as he possibly can. I have nothing bad whatsoever to say about the owner. But I was in touch with him before he was underway on a ship in the Indian Ocean, as far as I know.
Okay.
Can I say something? So this commission, our ability is to affect rent and or propose changes, which it seems like there's no change that we could propose that's not already being worked on. The house needs repairs. My question is, in my opinion, there shouldn't have been rent paid since the date of the loss. Normally, like the attorney said, if I lived there, I would not be paying rent. I would also move out. But the thing is, I don't know if any of you know people looking for a place to rent, but there are like none. So the reason they're probably still there is they probably have nowhere to go. There's not houses available to buy or rent in the city or in the area, in the town, anywhere. So I would think, would it not be possible to propose returned rent so they could afford to maybe stay in a hotel or somewhere that's livable if they got some of their money back for rent, because according to the application, they're current on their rent, which means that they've given about 3 months of rent during this time that they could have in their pocket to spend on housing, which they probably should. So, I mean, I would be in favor of doing something like that so that they can afford to go somewhere and live with a functioning house or apartment or hotel or whatever they could manage.
Yeah, so can I say something, please?
Go
I'm
ahead,
all
Brian.
set.
They're not current on their rent. They're not paying their rent. They owe about $3,500. They haven't paid rent since May, about mid-May. And I've told them, I've offered to let them out of the lease. I told them if they move out, they don't have to pay rent. I've told them this. As you said, there isn't a lot out there. There's not. I wish there was. I wish there was a place for them to go. I don't know where they're gonna go, but I have a job to do and I have to collect rent while they're living there. They did. They contacted me about the toilet being stopped up again on Saturday. And I don't think it matters where the money's coming from, but nevertheless, we're spent through our reserves and the reserves aren't being replenished because the tenants are not paying rent. I wish they were. They did not pay June, they did not pay July, and I'm sure they have no intention of paying August. And I
And
think
if I can interrupt, Brian is
Sure, why
correct.
not?
Once
Go ahead.
we were not getting any problems resolved with this house, yes, we did stop paying rent. We paid the first 2 months, but problem after problem after problem. And it was just getting ridiculous. So we had the right to withhold rent
You
until
do
these
not
problems
have the
got.
right. That is not your right to withhold rent. And you know what? I don't, the committee
Okay,
members
okay,
do not know
enough,
that you are
enough.
behind on your rent.
Enough. Let's slow down.
Yes, sir.
One person at a time will talk. Eric Callahan, I have a question for you, sir. And that is this seems to be a constructive eviction. It's a question. Is this a constructive eviction?
Well, I guess what I was going to say earlier, and this goes back to your Depot's question for me. I'm not entirely sure that this complaint belongs here. I mean, this commission has the ability to determine whether rent is excessive. It has the ability to refer this to have a building or a health inspection done, which it sounds are part of the considerations here. I've heard that these issues arose in early April. The landlord's been notified. I've also heard that the landlord is willing to let them out of their lease. And under Connecticut statute 47A-7, it delineates certain landlord responsibilities, which I think are at issue in this case. And 47A-12 would allow the tenant to terminate the lease if those issues are not rectified within 15 days of notice, which it sounds like they haven't been rectified, even though the landlord sounds like they're making some efforts to do this. So, you know, this commission can act within the parameters of the code applicable to the Fair Rent Commission, but I'm not sure why we're all here tonight adjudicating this if the landlord's willing to let the tenant out of the lease, and the tenant has these remedies under the statutes. You know, I think the tenant should hire an attorney or vacate the premises if they don't want to be there. Again, I'm not either the landlord or tenant's advisor, but it seems like there are remedies available to them outside of this condition.
Tabitha, do we hold or are we holding any monies in escrow?
No, we are not.
Okay. So one of the things that we have to look at is whether the rent has actually been paid. That's a consideration. When we say we're not going to pay, it means that we don't pay the landlord, but it goes into an escrow account that's held by our commission by the town. That is so that when we're 3 months into a situation like this, there's money that we can actually award to the people who were hurt, meaning the tenants. And I'm not saying that the property management and the owner isn't hurt either. Sometimes things just happen, but they're happening to a family now with children. And my primary concern is the safety of everybody in that building. We can talk about whether we're doing a governmental overreach, if you will, and stepping outside of what we're tasked to do, but ultimately we're tasked to protect the community. That's why we are here. And we have to move from this position of safety to protect those children. That's, you know, and I know that housing is difficult to find. And I wish that it didn't come to this. I wish you guys could have meted this all out and not taken up 7 people's, you know, dinner hour.
I hope you can see that I tried to do just that.
We see that you're working, Brian. Don't misunderstand me. We see that you're working, that you have taken action. You know, Ledge Light noted that you've taken action. Ledge Light has talked to your contractor. They're talking about another 2 months that's going to require a lot of work, and the people can't be there. So, you know, they really have, you guys have got to determine what you're going to do. And what the attorney has suggested is everybody walk away because it's a mess. Building inspection, you don't want in your house. I don't want them in your house. I don't want them in my house. But we have got an issue that you yourself have admitted to. It's a standing issue of health and safety, and this conversation should not go past that.
Unmute it, don't. Oh, I am unmute.
All right. What happened? Are we froze?
No, we're not on mute.
Dan Gajowski, what do you think?
No, I'm troubled by the living conditions, but I'm tending to agree with Attorney Callahan that, you know, the best ways, I don't know if we have jurisdiction in this case because we don't have any money through the escrow account. So there's nothing, I don't see it as in our jurisdiction, and I think it's best that parties go separate ways. And I would encourage, you know, try and work something out, but I do not believe the house is livable based on from what I'm hearing. So that's where I'm on this, Rob.
Thanks, Dan.
And
Gwen Depot?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it just seems like, and you know, Brian, I hope you don't think anyone here is attacking you, because certainly property management is no easy feat. And it just seems, as Attorney Callahan said, it's just kind of bad situation for everyone, kind of a catch-22. No one's trying to do wrong by anyone, but nothing's working out properly. I would have been inclined after, you know, 15 days or 30 days to say, hey, you know, let's just terminate the lease, because it's clearly the house wasn't going to be fixed within any reasonable amount of time. Yeah, I would be inclined to, I agree with Dan. It makes the most sense, and it stinks because this is a really hard market right now. I have tons of friends who are constantly asking me to keep an eye out for apartments for them. And it's difficult, but maybe on the other hand, I don't know what the property management has on the books, if there's another property that might be available that they could look at to rent, or if you know a reputable property manager that has other things in the area or something where there could be, you know, a little referral worked out or something, because it is hard to find a place, and they do need a place to live. I don't know what to suggest beyond that. Obviously, staying in a hotel is very expensive, but I don't think there's anything this commission can really do, since there's no rent in escrow and there's really nothing we can change because rent's already not being paid, which again, I agree with the rent not being paid if it's not livable, but it doesn't make sense to keep doing that. There's got to be a resolution at some point. So that's where I stand.
And if I may speak, please, if you're done talking, ma'am. Yeah, you know, we've been looking every day for other properties, and you're right, there's nothing out there right now. And it's, you know, if we got displaced for a couple of months and this house got fixed properly, so it was in, you know, living conditions, we're more than happy to pay the rent here.
Anyone
I mean,
would
when we
love this
That's
moved
not
in,
the
we
issue,
loved this
folks.
house.
Literally
We're
anyone would.
beyond the issue right now. Uh,
All I'm
Danielle.
saying is you can't expect us to take 3 kids and a dog and live in a hotel. I mean, you're talking about going out to eat every night. You can't cook in a hotel.
And you can't prepare food in a place that is full of bacteria and mold.
Correct.
Correct. So
So Danielle Turrell, what's your spin on this?
As frustrating as this is, I'm sure to hear for Kevin and Casey, I agree with Attorney Callahan and the other committee members that have had responses. I think unfortunately this is outside of the scope of the Fair Rent Commission. Incredibly frustrating situation, and to have the the homeowner underway is also just a wrench that I can appreciate Brian is trying to juggle with. Did you say that I was a little bit unclear, but did you say that you do have renter's insurance that could help potentially facilitate this, or that you obtained it after the date of loss?
I obtained it after the date of loss. This is Kevin Nutt speaking, through USAA on prior service as well.
Okay.
I don't understand this underway terminology. And Brian, you never told me that he was in the Indian Ocean. You just said he was stationed in Guam anyways, that's personal. Yes, I did obtain it afterwards, but it wasn't required in the lease. And the only thing that it's really going to get squared away on our end is spoilage of food and maybe a little bit of time spent in a hotel if we get displaced. I mean, hell, I'm only paying $14 a month. I'm not going to lie. So I gotta look through that policy again. Never had to have renter's insurance because I've never had to go through something like this. But I will say this last note, and then I'm off. This all transpired 5 days after we moved in. Just to give you guys a little, heads up. 5 days, and we started having this issue. And after that 5 days, that's when our bathroom was completely flooded, and we only have a 1-bathroom house. So, end note. Thank you.
I don't think anyone disputes that it's awful, and we all can sympathize. It's obviously not a good situation, and that really is bad. I can't imagine that they would have rented it knowing that was going to happen. Obviously Brian didn't know that was going to happen. He's not it's not his house, so he can only work off the information he has, which is from the owner. And again, just a confluence of bad things that happen. So I don't want you to think that we don't understand that, but this commission doesn't adjudicate that type of thing. We adjudicate the fair rent, whether they're charging an unfair amount of rent.
Okay, I'm tracking.
So in terms of that's why we're not saying we don't care about those particulars, but they don't inform any decision we can make, because it's not there's no rent at stake, because there's no rent in escrow, and that's not an issue.
Okay, that makes sense.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. Now, we paid $1,800 security, $1,800 first month's rent, $1,800 second month's rent. And then we basically said, okay, we're done, just because of everything. We tried getting Brian to even just reduce the rent. We were still willing to pay, but just reduce the rent for all these problems we were having. And he was unwilling to work with us. Now, would you guys be able to basically guesstimate what we should be charged for rent under the 30% plan, and a reduced rent for all the problems we're having, to where the last 2 months that
You're
we
not
haven't
paying
paid?
rent. What difference does it make?
That's about the
You're not
last.
paying-
Brian,
Okay,
Brian,
folks,
please
hold
don't
on.
interrupt
Hold
me.
on,
I'm
one
done.
person at a time.
So what I'm asking is, take all that overpay that we paid in the beginning to where we would basically come out even at this point, because we're only 2 months of not paying rent.
Right. I'm
You know what I'm
inclined to
saying?
tell you that your case does not rest before us. I'm inclined to tell you exactly what Attorney Callahan said, and that is to get a lawyer. someone that can tell you what your rights are and bring your case to the proper court where it's properly heard. You cannot be rescued after the 31st from eviction. The moratorium is expiring. You need to be cognizant of this. You can be evicted for non-payment of rent. Had you taken your money and put it into the escrow account with this commission, you would have received some protection from that action. Is that true, Mr. Callahan, Attorney Callahan?
I think you do. I mean, if you wanted to go down the path of determining whether the rent is excessive, you could. It doesn't sound like it's going to really rectify this current situation, which is you have tenants, including children, living in the house that has sewage in it and asbestos. I think something you could do is order the landlord to rectify the issue and set the rent at a certain amount, which could be basically zero or whatever you think is fair until that issue is rectified. And that's under section 9-37(9) of your code. So I think you can do that even though there's rent that's not in the escrow account, and maybe it will kind of true up with itself down the road. My concern is, as much as the landlord, indicates they're trying to rectify the issue, it doesn't sound like it's going to be addressed imminently, and you have, you as tenants living in, unsanitary living conditions. So, I'm concerned with that, and I'd be hopeful the landlord could work with you on what you paid. But if this commission wanted to make a decision on whether the current rent being charged is excessive, it could do so, even though there's not rent in the escrow account. And I'm looking at 9-37 subsection 9 of your code.
Does this, I'm curious now, because these folks, the moratorium on evictions will be lifted. Are they exposed to an eviction danger, an eviction action?
I hesitate to give advice there, because that's a whole different issue. There hasn't been rent paid, but there also hasn't been landlord. I feel that there's an issue with the landlords providing the services required by the statutes, and I would let them deal with that through their respective legal counsel.
But isn't it kind of insanity that you'd worry about getting evicted when it's unsafe to be living there? Why would you fight to stay living in a place that's unsafe and then turn around and make the case that it's unsafe and your rent should be reduced? That doesn't make any sense to me. I realize that there's not a lot of places out there.
There's nowhere else to go right now.
Well, there are places to go. It might not be ideal, but in the interim, you might find a 2-bedroom apartment somewhere.
You want
not
me to put
necessarily in Groton.
dog into a 2-bedroom house, Brian?
Casey, I don't know, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but that's not my problem. Why does everyone get to interrupt?
It's enough. One person's going to speak at a time.
Can that person be me?
Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead. What's your point?
My point is they should not be living there. I agree 100%. And sometimes you have to do what you have to do. It might not be in Groton. It might not be a nice 3 to 4 bedroom single family home. But in a case like this, you just have to do what you have to do. It's your family.
I understand.
My job is to manage this property and to get it restored, working with the necessary contractors and the owner. The best way for me to do that is with no one living in this property. If you found a temporary place to live and then could come back, fantastic. But no one could be there while this work is being done. And it's insane to me that people are fighting to live in this place and then at the same time saying that it's unsafe and unsanitary. I don't understand that. We're doing everything we can to remedy this situation and to restore the property to its original condition. We can't do that while you're living there. So you have to do something. I mean, if it was my family, I wouldn't just be looking to someone else to solve my problems. I'd figure it out and do what I had to do. Suck it up, go live in a 2-bedroom. I realize that's not ideal. But in this situation, that might just be what you have to do.
As anybody else like Dan Gajowski, what would you say?
It's an awful situation. And I still feel that we don't really have jurisdiction here. I don't feel comfortable getting involved in what potentially could result in a legal case. And I would not want to expose our commission to that.
Very good. Thank you, Dan. How about you, Gwen? How do you feel on that?
I agree with Dan. I think, we could go into, security deposit, the rent that they've received already. I'm assuming she said security first and second month, but I'm assuming that is security first and last month's rent, because that's more normal.
She did a security deposit and then the first month's rent for April, and then she did pay May, albeit late. She paid May 18th. So that's what she meant. First, 1 month security, first month's rent, second month's rent, and then she did not pay June or July.
So, but all of that is wrapped up in the issue of whether or not they should still be living there. Under normal circumstances, as a landlord, I would have immediately said, these repairs are going to take a long time. I'm going to have to, terminate the lease because it's not a suitable place to live. Obviously, you can't do that under the emergency powers that they have right now or whatever. But, I agree with Dan that I don't know that it even makes any sense to get involved in it, because I don't think any action we take is going to have enough of a positive effect that it's going to help at all, because there's so many other issues. And it's so, and I understand, Brian, you said just suck it up. That might be easy for you. You might be in a position where you can do that, or you might, I think a little bit of sympathy. I know it's a difficult situation, but even I just looked up rents in Groton. I found one place for rent has 3 bedrooms or more, and it's $2,200. So,
Exactly.
there's not,
Exactly. And we're
there's
charging
not
$1,800 here.
well, I mean, it was a nicer house, but it was bigger anyways. I don't think the rent, to me, the amount of rent is not an issue, because rents are high right now. And people will pay that much for a 4-bedroom because that's how much they can pay. But I don't think that we are in a position to make any judgments that will even help at all in this situation. I don't think it's helpful.
Thank you, Gwen. Danielle Turrell, your thoughts? Danielle, can you hear me? Danielle Turrell?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you. We can
Okay.
hear you.
Sorry about that. It looks like my screen froze, but I'm in agreement that this doesn't seem like the right place, unfortunately, for Fair Rent Commission.
Thank you, Danielle. And I also concur that if we take significant action, that we could possibly be overreaching our goal here, our task. My thought is that, again, this should be adjudicated in another venue. You've heard it from all of the commission. This is, basically what we're thinking. Is it time for a vote? Do I hear a motion to take action? Do I hear a motion to not take action? Would somebody like to raise a motion? Okay. I'll make a motion that the commission make the appropriate referrals, and that we not take a decision in either party's favor, because we're really not adjudicating a rent increase. We're looking at the condition of a building that these people moved into, and in the first week of their occupancy, experienced this horror. There's no way that any one of us can determine the safety of this building without a proper inspection by a professional inspector. I don't want to go any further with it until we have, we're just shooting in the dark here.
I agree. Do we need a motion for inaction though, or do we just, or
Choose
do we
not to
just,
take
should we
action.
move to close the issue or something like that? 'Cause I'll second that if that's,
What's your motion?
you just made a motion to
Okay,
not take action. I'm
right.
seconding that.
All right. Yes. There's a motion. It's been made and seconded. Commissioners signify by saying yay if you're in favor, nay if you're not. Dan Gajowski,
Aye.
Gwen Depot,
Aye.
Danielle Turrell,
Aye.
Rob DeVoe, aye. So we're not going to take action, and the motion carries. The actions that we have taken was that we did notify Ledge Light that there was an issue, there is an issue based on what their inspections are, based on what the property manager has said. It's my feeling to wish everybody in this situation the best of luck. This is an awful hard situation for everybody. It really, really is. Safety is first, safety always. There is no amount of rent that is worth any child's sickness. And that is why we all have this duty. That's all I have to say. I'll shut up now. Is there a motion to clear the meeting, to end the meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I
Second that
the
motion.
Motion has been made, seconded, and carries. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.